The Waterford vase had belonged to our grandmother. Melissa grabbed it from the credenza during our argument about the trust distribution, and I remember thinking how strange it was to notice the weight of it, the way light refracted through the cut crystal, in the half-second before it connected with my temple. You had no right, Melissa said, standing over me as my vision tunneled. That money was supposed to be split evenly. I'd been trying to explain the terms of the trust for 20 minutes. Our grandmother's estate planning had been meticulous. I knew because I'd spent the last 8 years administering similar trusts for other families in my role at the county probate court, but Melissa hadn't let me finish a single sentence. The floor was cold against my cheek. I could hear our cousins in the doorway, could see their shoes. Nobody moved. Someone should call an ambulance, James said finally, his voice uncertain. She's fine, Melissa snapped. She's being dramatic. I wasn't fine. The pain was extraordinary, radiating from my skull in waves that made my stomach clench. But I'd learned over the years not to argue with Melissa when she'd made up her mind about something. I tried to push myself up. The room tilted violently. I'm calling 911, James said. Don't you dare, Melissa said. This is a family matter. If you call the police, you're choosing her side. I heard James's phone click off. The ambulance came anyway. One of the neighbors had heard the shouting. By the time the paramedics arrived, I'd vomited twice and couldn't remember my own phone number. Melissa told them I'd fallen. The lead paramedic, a woman named Sandra, looked at the vase still on the floor, looked at Melissa, and asked me directly, "Did someone hit you?" I nodded. The movement sent fresh agony through my head. Who? I looked at Melissa. She was already pulling out her phone, probably texting the family group chat to control the narrative. My sister, I whispered. Sandra's expression didn't change, but she made a note on her tablet. We're taking you to Memorial. You likely have a serious head injury. At the hospital, they did a CT scan. The technician was professional and efficient, positioning my head carefully, while I tried not to move. Each adjustment felt like someone was driving railroad spikes through my skull. Try to stay still, she said gently. I know it hurts. In the ER bay afterward, a doctor named Martinez reviewed the images on a computer screen. His jaw tightened. You have a skull fracture, he said. Linear fracture of the temporal bone. You're extremely lucky. It could have been much worse. Any harder, and we'd be looking at brain surgery. Can I go home? I asked. No. You're being admitted for observation. Minimum 48 hours. With a head injury this severe, we need to watch for complications. He paused, then asked. The paramedics noted this was assault. Have you filed a police report? It was my sister, I said. It's complicated. It's not complicated, Dr. Martinez said. Someone fractured your skull. That's aggravated assault. I'm obligated to report it, and hospital security has already notified the police. I closed my eyes. The fluorescent lights were unbearable. They admitted me to the neurology floor. My phone had 17 missed calls from family members. I turned it off. A police officer came to take my statement around midnight. I told her everything. The argument about the trust, Melissa's claim that the inheritance should be split differently than our grandmother had specified, the vase, the cousins who'd watched and done nothing. Do you want to press charges? The officer asked. I thought about it. Thought about Melissa's 3 children. About family dinners that would never be the same. About my mother having to choose between her daughters. Yes, I said. I do. The officer nodded. The hospital already provided the medical documentation. With evidence this clear, the DA will definitely prosecute. What I didn't tell the officer, what I hadn't told anyone in my family, was what I actually did for a living. They knew I worked at the courthouse. They assumed I was an administrative assistant or a clerk. I'd never corrected them. It was easier that way, easier to avoid the endless questions about their own legal situations, the requests to just take a quick look at their documents. I was a probate court magistrate. I'd been appointed to the position 3 years ago, the youngest magistrate in the county's history. I handled estate disputes, trust administrations, guardianships. I worked directly with the 6 probate judges in our district, and I'd built a reputation for thorough, fair rulings. The trust Melissa was fighting about, I'd already reviewed it. Our grandmother had been my client 2 years before she died. I'd helped her structure the estate plan. I knew every provision, every contingency, every reason she'd made the choices she had. Melissa was entitled to a distribution, just not the one she wanted. Our grandmother had left specific instructions. Melissa's portion was in a spendthrift trust. protected from her creditors and her ex-husband's claims, doled out in controlled amounts. She'd made poor financial decisions for years, and our grandmother had tried to protect her from herself. My portion was unrestricted, because I'd demonstrated financial responsibility. Melissa had convinced herself this was favoritism. She'd convinced the family, too. I'd tried to explain it at the house that day, tried to show her the actual trust documents, but she'd been furious before I'd even walked in. The next morning, a hospital social worker came to see me. "I need to collect some information for our records," she said. "Your occupation?" "Probate magistrate," I said. "County probate court." She looked up from her tablet. "You're a magistrate?" "Yes." "And your sister assaulted you over a trust dispute?" "Yes." She was quiet for a moment. "Does she know what you do?" "No. My family thinks I'm a clerk." The social worker shook her head slowly. "The CT results and medical records are automatically flagged for review when there's assault involving a head injury. Given your position, this is going to go straight to the Judicial Oversight Committee." I'd known that, of course. It was standard protocol. What I hadn't fully processed was what would happen next. By that afternoon, my phone was receiving messages from colleagues. Judge Berkowitz, Judge Huang, Judge Thompson, all 6 probate judges in the district had been notified through the court's internal system. An assault on a judicial officer triggered mandatory reporting up the chain. Judge Berkowitz called me directly. "I just saw the medical report," she said. "Are you all right?" "I have a skull fracture," I said, "but I'll recover." "Who did this to you?" "My sister." "It was a family dispute about a trust." There was a long pause. "Your sister doesn't know you're a magistrate?" "No. She's going to find out. This is going to the Judicial Conduct Board, and given the nature of the assault, there will be a full investigation. If she's involved in any estate matters in this county, she's going to have serious problems." I hadn't thought about that. Melissa was currently serving as executor for our uncle's estate, a small matter only about $40,000, but still under probate court jurisdiction. "She'll be removed as executor," Judge Berkowitz continued. "You can't assault a court officer and maintain fiduciary responsibilities. The DA is also going to take this very seriously. Assaulting a judicial officer carries enhanced penalties." My mother called that evening. "Melissa said you're trying to ruin her life," she said. "She said you called the police over an accident. She fractured my skull with a vase, Mom, on purpose, because I wouldn't lie about what Grandma's trust actually says. She's your sister. Can't you just drop the charges?" I didn't file charges. The hospital reported it because it's mandatory, and even if I wanted to drop it, I can't. I'm a probate magistrate. Melissa assaulted a court officer. It's out of my hands now. Silence. "You're a what?" "I'm a magistrate. I have been for 3 years. I work with all 6 probate judges in the county. I helped Grandma write the trust Melissa is fighting about." More silence. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because every time I mentioned anything about law or estates, everyone wanted free legal advice. It was easier to just say I worked at the courthouse and let you assume whatever you wanted." Melissa didn't know. Nobody knew, except Grandma, because she was my client. I could hear my mother breathing, processing. "What's going to happen to her?" she asked finally. "She'll be charged with aggravated assault on a judicial officer. It's a second-degree felony. She'll be removed from Uncle David's estate, and if she contests Grandma's trust, every judge in this county will know she attacked the magistrate who helped draft it. Can you help her?" "No, Mom. I can't. She cracked my skull because she wanted money that wasn't hers. I'm the victim here." My mother hung up without saying goodbye. The police arrested Melissa 2 days later. James called to tell me. "She's saying you provoked her," he said. "She's saying you've been manipulating the trust. I helped Grandma write it. I can prove every decision was Grandma's choice. The file is documented. I have notes from every meeting." "She doesn't believe you." "That's not my problem anymore." The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks out. My doctor cleared me to work after 10 days, though I still had headaches and occasional dizziness. I wore a small bandage over the stitches they'd put in my temple. The first day back, Judge Thompson stopped by my office. "How are you feeling?" "Better. Ready to work. The case against your sister is being assigned to Judge Berkowitz. I wanted you to know. We've all reviewed the medical reports. I'm sorry this happened to you." "Thank you. Your sister filed a motion to have you recused from any estate matters involving your family." I looked up. Did she? Judge Berkowitz denied it. You're the victim, not the adjudicator. But she's also requested modification of your grandmother's trust, claiming undue influence. Of course she has. Can you prove the trust was your grandmother's decision? I have 3 years of documented meetings, emails and notes. I have witnesses from the estate planning firm. I have everything. Judge Thompson nodded. Good, because Melissa's attorney is going to argue that you manipulated an elderly woman to benefit yourself. The family stopped calling after the preliminary hearing. Melissa pleaded not guilty. Her attorney was expensive, paid for by draining the last of her savings. She lost her position as executor of Uncle David's estate. The replacement executor found discrepancies in her accounting. Nothing criminal, but sloppy enough to raise questions. At the trust hearing, Melissa's attorney presented his case. I was called as a witness. I provided the complete file, every meeting note, every email where our grandmother had explicitly stated her reasoning. The attorney representing the trust presented testimony from the estate planning firm, from our grandmother's financial advisor, from her personal physician who'd confirmed her mental competence at the time. Judge Huang reviewed everything. The hearing took 6 hours. The evidence is clear, Judge Huang said finally. The trust was properly executed, the trustee was competent, and there is extensive documentation supporting every provision. The motion to modify is denied. Melissa stood up. This is corrupt. She's a magistrate. They're all protecting her. Miss Patterson, Judge Huang said coldly. You're in my courtroom. You fractured your sister's skull with a weapon, because you wanted money you're not entitled to. You're facing criminal charges. If you continue to disrupt these proceedings, I'll hold you in contempt. Melissa sat down. The criminal trial was 2 months later. I testified. The paramedics testified. Dr. Martinez presented the CT scans. The jury deliberated for 90 minutes. Guilty on all counts. Melissa received 3 years, suspended to 18 months with probation. She also received a permanent restraining order keeping her at least 500 feet from me at all times. I saw her once more, at our mother's funeral the following year. She stood on the opposite side of the cemetery, far enough away to comply with the restraining order. We didn't speak. I don't know what she's doing now. James tells me she moved to another state. The trust continues to distribute funds to her on our grandmother's schedule. She gets a check every quarter. It's enough to live on if she's careful. It's exactly what our grandmother intended. I still have headaches sometimes, when the weather changes. The scar is barely visible now, hidden in my hairline. But I remember the sound the vase made when it hit, remember the coldness of the floor, remember my cousin's shoes in the doorway, as they decided not to help. Some fractures heal clean, others leave permanent marks. I work at the courthouse. I'm still a magistrate, and every time I review a trust document, I think about the weight of crystal, the importance of clear instructions, and the damage people will do over money they believe they deserve. My grandmother knew what she was doing. She always did.